Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani, and I'm alongside Cyril Abaku, TVC News senior researcher.
Good morning.
Indeed. So here we are, looking at the second day, as it were, of the reopening, well, the phased or gradual reopening of society, all in an effort to contain COVID-19, doing everything that we can. We looked at it yesterday. Well, I guess a delicate way to put it is that there's a lot more that we could do. But the one thing that seemed to come out of observations yesterday, looking at the public's behavior, was that people just wanted out. So we'll come back and talk a bit more about this. But we do have the presidential task force, a package on the presidential task force and their overview of the situation.
Seen at the premises of a commercial bank in Abuja, moments after the commencement of the phased and gradual easing of the lockdown. Indeed, this was replicated in Lagos and Ogun State. It seems these ones are cash-strapped and desperate to get hold of some banknotes. Here, there is no social distancing, though some of them have masks on their faces as a preventive measure. Clearly disturbed by this, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, at its daily briefing, partially heaps the blame on the doorstep of banks who they accuse of making counterproductive moves in the National Response Plan against the coronavirus. The Director General of the Center for Disease Control says the rowdy scenes at the banks will certainly cause a spike in the number of confirmed cases.
Yes, we're addressing individuals, but we really need to address corporate Nigeria. You know, one of the biggest groups that have allowed to restart business today were banks. Now, but many banks have not limited the number of branches that have opened. And yes, there's a benefit of that, but when you limit the number of branches that are open, everybody goes to the one branch that is open. And that becomes counterproductive.
Health authorities now say there is more attention on the emerging situation in Kano and an ongoing intense ramp-up on testing in the state. More than 40 staff of the NCDC and 17 from the World Health Organization are enhancing capacity in the race against time to slow down the spread of the coronavirus in the densely populated state.
With regard to Kano, the Federal Ministry of Health is strengthening its support for the Kano State Ministry of Health with service delivery and training in consultation with His Excellency the Governor. The setbacks that have been recorded in routine hospital service delivery are being addressed by line experts from the Ministry of Health, working closely with officials of Kano State, whether they are omissions from National Primary Healthcare Development or Department of Family Health. We have sent line officers to go and start rebuilding those service lines.
With the gradual and phased easing of the lockdown comes an introduction of new preventive measures across the country. Now the Presidential Task Force insists the danger of infection is not over and that individual efforts will contribute to the success in flattening the curve of transmission.
Where there are solidarity trials that are ongoing, which is being coordinated by the World Health Organization, which is the agency that is looking after matters of health at the international level, to which we have subscribed and ascribed as members. So we are part of that solidarity trial. And I believe that the outcomes would define the kind of treatment that will be prescribed for coronavirus. For now, to the best of my knowledge, there's no single trial. There's no single cure.
Already, Nigeria has indicated interest to the World Health Organization to be part of the global solidarity trial of medicines in the effort to find a cure for the pandemic that has attacked global health and wealth. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
And our thanks to Femi Akande, among a whole team of TVC reporters and other journalists around the country that are actually putting themselves out, going out there into the field and letting us know about this situation. Well, you see, here we are, we look at how it's going to go the second day, but these are pictures. Some might call them disturbing, some will say, well, at the same time, we understand. I'm talking here about the whole collapse of that aspect of the fight against COVID-19 that you can put under the category of personal responsibility. We're being asked to take personal responsibility because that's the only way we're going to get on top of this whole situation. But the people are so eager, and let's face it, a lockdown is neither sustainable economically or, for that matter, politically in terms of security of the society.
I think what we saw on day one of the lockdown, which is likely to spill into day two, which has already spilled into day two of the easing of the lockdown, was a foreseeable thing because of how people had been locked up in their homes for about a month. And so once you open up the floodgates, people are going to want to rush out. It's only normal, it's human. But I think that if we maintain this tempo of indiscretion, let me call it that, then the president may be forced to rethink the easing of the lockdown. Because as we speak, the task force yesterday also raised very salient and serious concerns that the impact and consequence of this sort of mass behavior could be far-reaching. As a matter of fact, you saw the man that came down with symptoms and they had to take him. These are kind of things that you want to avoid. And whereas we don't pray for the worst, the reality is that if that sort of scenario was what we don't want, and assuming that he had symptoms of COVID and maybe had already mingled with others, so these sort of things,
that's a problem.
We don't want that exactly. So we're looking at the situation that if this sort of thing continues into Wednesday, continues into Thursday, then we may be heading for. The real fear for me is that we may be returning to the beginning of the community transmission phase. Because the fact is that, in a manner of speaking, I think we came to a point where we understood what we were dealing with and had a measure of containment. Look at New Zealand, look at Australia. They're already discussing how to resume flights between both countries. As I speak to you, New Zealand has no single case. And so Nigeria too could have begun to move on that trajectory, at least for the fact that we are able to treat people, we're able to do contact tracing, which other countries are also doing. Being able to know, okay, this person is down with the symptom, what do we do? We're treating successfully. Some people are dying, of course, but we know where. So we had a measure of national pattern, as it were. But with what we are seeing, between Monday and today, it's not just in banks, motor parks, buses, that whole throng you saw. It was this same kind of throng we saw in is it Bergamo? Is it in Italy? And the mayor said this is a biological bomb.
Yeah.
So if this trend continues, we are only heading for what could be very cataclysmic.
Indeed.
Epidemiologically speaking. So I think government needs to be sitting down to look at this thing very critically.
No doubt they are watching it very, very closely. And you see at the top of the whole pole of everything is what I said at the beginning, I think. The lockdown, you see, we got a catch-22 situation here. The lockdown is not sustainable economically or, for that matter, even politically, in the interest of law and order. So look at those two. And then factor in the fact that whereas I take all those things you said about, out there, especially the so-called advanced worlds, we have a situation here, a third world and all of that, the structures, the infrastructure are not exactly, there are going to be challenges of, doing what is in our best interest.
Yes.
So it's going to be a battle, really, to inform people so that they can do what the task force has been saying, which is take personal responsibility. Until this situation here becomes one where every Nigerian, indeed every African, but let's concentrate at home for the moment, every Nigerian takes a personal responsibility does his own bit to socially distance to the extent that it is practicable.
You know, the issue
so these are the problems we have.
Yes, I think the first issue you've raised is the question of balancing a number of interests.
Yes.
Political, economic. Of course, that thing was a big dilemma. To sit here and say that this is how we should have done it would amount to mere pontification. Because the reality is that people needed to eat. People needed to make ends meet. Since it became proved or proven that the palliatives were not going to go down to everyone.
Yeah.
And that even in cases where people were willing to come out and volunteer, and how long could they sustain that, for instance?
Yeah.
So
it's not sustainable.
So resources are finite, whether from government or from individuals. And so the fact is that, okay, fine. But when people are going to come out of the houses, they were coming out to see the same things they had seen before. So somebody asked at the PTA briefing yesterday, why didn't we have a mass disinfection of our streets as we saw in other countries? I don't know what answer was really given there.
I don't know if it was Professor Abayomi when we spoke with him sometime last week who had observed that you can't disinfect the streets. We have a different kind of a structure. You can't disinfect the air. Where we've seen this done with high-tech vehicles, doing the rounds in Italy, maybe Denmark, wherever, where we are most vulnerable, unless you're going to try and disinfect the air, which is not what it's all about. So we have a whole series of challenges that we are going to have to find a way to overcome. In fact, some people have begun to think, some thinkers have begun to think that, look, while we're waiting for a vaccine for, COVID-19, the timetable...
For those who are waiting for a vaccine.
For those who are waiting for a vaccine, 18 months to, I think 12 to 18 months. President Trump in the U.S. is saying that he is sure that by the end of this year we shall have a vaccine.
The Germans have told him to his face that it is not possible to get a vaccine within that period.
Professor Abayomi also said the same thing in so many words, that this is not something that you rush. It's a very complex matter coming up with vaccines.
It is indeed.
So we have a situation on our hands. There are those who have begun to examine the other possibility of what if we can't find a virus for this?
Okay.
What if we can't find a virus for this? Because if that were to be the case, it wouldn't be the first time. I was surprised when I was reading that in an article until I went into the depths of it and found out that, hang on, you know what we're talking about here? We don't have a virus for HIV, for instance. We don't.
A cure, as it were.
I beg your pardon. I meant vaccine.
Yes.
We don't have a vaccine for for HIV, for instance. But what has happened is that society has come to learn to coexist with the virus. So there are people that are saying that, look, Plan A is what we're talking about now. We might as well, while we're at it, begin to think about a plan B as well. Because look at those people, look at the crowd you saw trying to gain access to a bank. And it just reminds me of other jam-packed spaces.
Yeah.
It's a ticking time bomb.
What I would say is my plan B, my plan B advice to the government would be this, and it is very honest and from a very, very sincere point of view. Uncle Yori, after the civil war in Nigeria, there was a crisis with high challenges. Government thought it wise that since palm oil contains, vitamin A, something like that, it brought up a campaign for families to, use palm oil to cook food and to cook food on a daily basis and so on. I think that led to a reduction in the prevalence of that particular ailment. Thereafter came the issue of with goiter. Government said, okay, since a lack of iodine is responsible for goiter, and since we can't feed iodine people, let us iodize salt. From iodized salt, prevalence of goiter has reduced. Since even the government has admitted and told us, the Minister of Health has said that, look, we need to build our immune systems. The simple thing to do is this: if government is afraid of spreading the campaign, use informal sources. Let us have a list of foods or herbs, whatever that boost
whatever.
immunity.
Because I agree with you. I'm saying that
boost immunity.
Yes.
And encourage Nigerians to make it a part of their daily diet. It's as simple as that, at least for the long term.
We have Ovieteme George on the line now. Actually, we can connect with him live. He's our correspondent in. In fact he's the South
and Southeast Bureau
and Southeast Bureau Chief. Good morning, Ovieteme. I know you can see us.
I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now. Excellent. We have a time lag. We'll factor that in. Good morning. Where are you located precisely, and how well has compliance been with best practices to keep coronavirus in check?
Yes, right now I'm standing right in front of the entrance to Bayelsa. Igbogene is the border community to Bayelsa State. Few kilometers away is Mbiama, the actual community between Rivers and Bayelsa. You can see right behind me, a few cars are stuck here. It is just an enforcement of the interstate lockdown directive of President Muhammadu Buhari. But right here, it is a bit difficult knowing who is coming from what state, because Bayelsa runs through the east-west road, and through the east-west road, you also have communities in Rivers State. So the security personnel are trying to enforce that. Then just a few kilometers away, some persons who are coming in are being screened medically to check their temperature and the vitals before they would be allowed to come in. But the fact remains that the presidential directive of interstate lockdown is in force in Bayelsa, and that was restated by Governor Douye Diri yesterday at a meeting of the COVID-19 committee. And now in Bayelsa also, there is a partial lockdown, which means there is interstate travel and movement. However, the security personalities are out here to ensure there is no breach. Now you can see a few cars are being allowed to go in. They have to go through the test. They have to go through the screening before they are allowed to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Ovie. So what is the test like, and have there been incidents where they have had to turn back anybody?
Well, there were incidents like that, but perhaps not technically linked to the coronavirus itself. Like they're checking the temperature. If it's a bit too high, suggestive of maybe a respiratory problem, or that has to do with something that could be linked to the coronavirus. I haven't really seen that because I've not been here all day. But those cars that were turned back is just because they were flouting the rule. In Bayelsa exists a stay-at-home order and also a partial lockdown before the presidential directive for interstate lockdown. So when you see cars that are being turned back, it's because they are coming from other states where it is certified. But there are also other cars coming in from within Bayelsa that may be a bit difficult to trace, because Bayelsa runs through the east-west road where you have Kayama and also Odi. It's a bit technical down here, Yori.
Yes, indeed. But okay, about give me some sort of sense about in town itself. This is a border community. What were the markets? You said there's a partial sort of lockdown within Bayelsa. What were the markets like? How did people? What happened to the concept of social distancing, for example?
Social distancing is a knotty problem in Nigeria. If you think you're dealing with one, just like the gray hair, you pluck one off, another pops up in its stead. It is difficult anywhere. I saw footages of Lagos, people running to the banks, trying to get money. The same thing with banks in Bayelsa State. Well, for the market, there's been sensitization about the danger to themselves and not just to society, and that in trying to protect public health, there should be that safe distancing. Now, how safe is that distancing is what I'm beginning to ask myself. You give a woman money, she puts it in her pouch, brings it out, and gives you back what we may call change. There is this closeness. There's no distance. It is difficult to comply with. But the sensitization is on to the traders because of their placement in society, being in the rank of the petty bourgeois, and some may not be really educated and do not know. But the jingles are out there, and the state-owned radio stations telling them the need to abide by that safe distancing rule. Because when they leave the market, they will get home to meet their family members. If somebody contracts the virus, it spreads. but it is difficult to abide by. That I can tell you.
How about things that people are going to think of as normal, places like eateries? How are they behaving there? And then transportation, where, for example, in Lagos, there is the regulation, please be no more than 2/3 full. Do not take maximum capacity, 60%. So those kind of things, we're having challenges, enforcing those in Lagos. Is it any different up there?
It's also difficult here, but you see, there are two different cases, two different scenarios. Lagos is densely populated. Yenagoa, where I am, is just the capital city of Bayelsa, not that densely populated, except for the areas close to the waterfronts. Now, the COVID-19 task force had given clear instructions that the tricycles should not accommodate more than 2 persons. But I've seen instances where more than 3 and perhaps 4 were picked up along the way. Now, who enforces that? If the security agencies are in front, they will definitely deal with that thing. But by the time they leave the security point, where there's a checkpoint, they will pick more passengers. So you see, it is a difficult thing to deal with that. You talked about eateries earlier. I should have a very wild appetite to go around eateries to know how well they are complying with that. But the economic uncertainties are actually telling on eateries and businesses related to that. Few persons going in, few persons coming out. And before 7 o'clock, they've shut down business for the day because they have to be home before 8. 8 to 6 p.m. is how the curfew is in Bayelsa. That is the stipulated time, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. So people
you
must
amended that.
definitely leave the eateries and whatever businesses and lock up.
Well, thank you very much, Yovietema. George, our correspondent in Yenagoa, and really South and Southeast. And do keep safe and keep the good work up. Thank you very much. So there you go. We were talking about this is a challenge, whether we like it or not. We are facing it, and everything. At the end of the day, as we like to say, when they speak all the grammar, when all the big boffins and all the medical experts, until we take personal responsibility,
yes.
thereby cooperating with whatever are the structures, the schematic diagrams that are being designed, until, in the words of an article I read, until we begin to take people who self-isolate as heroes and heroines, not as pariahs, then we still have a long way to go.
So here's what we can do. We can appeal to people as psychologists, as it were, but the sociology is a bigger issue because now it's a mix. A lot of factors, demographics, psychographics, this, that, and so on. But Nigeria needs to realize that we have a crisis with viral diseases. We have Lassa, we have Ebola, if you may, and we have coronavirus now.
Dengue, Dengue.
Dengue fever, you have, including the other one, I've forgotten the name now. But since all of these things have one thing in common, I don't want to go into, I'm not a virologist, but at least I know one thing about viruses. They are self-limiting. What doctors do most of the time is to treat the symptoms. So here's what we're going to do, okay? We're going to make sure that Nigerians have a culture of building their immune systems, because the physical and capital infrastructure we need to have in terms of hospitals, in terms of good healthcare systems and so on, they are not there. Let us build ones we can build internally and at very cheap cost.
Yeah, because
we are fighting the prevalence of goiter and koyori by iodizing salt.
Yes.
So if you buy salt in Nigeria, you're fighting goiter invariably. When you use palm oil to cook, you're
iodized salt.
Of course.
Yes.
You're fighting goiter. That's government policy. So how do we, because God forbid, next year Lassa could come back. The DG of NCDC said the other day that the emergency phase of Lassa for 2020 has passed. Glory be to God for that. Does it mean that it won't come next year or it's going to come next year?
And this is the whole problem.
What do we then do? Why don't we imbibe preventive medicine as a national philosophy for healthcare?
You know, I hear what you're talking about. You're talking about general public health generally. But we're concerned with COVID-19 right now. And it is one of the host of, it's among that host of challenges that we are facing. But the real frustrating thing here is that science doesn't understand it yet. I mean, they've told us how it does its damage, but they have no clue at the moment. Even as trials reportedly have become, human trials have reportedly begun in some areas, we don't have any clue. In fact, there are those who are saying that things are never going to be the same after this. They're talking about perhaps a new normal in the future. A new normal. But I'll come back. Let me go on a commercial break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about this some more. And also taking the reports of more of our correspondents around the country. Stay with us, please. Okay, so welcome back, and it's the next day after, the gradual phasing, reopening of our life sort of begun, and this is after about 30 days in some cases, in most cases, of needing of a complete lockdown, sort of. That was the intention, for it to be a complete lockdown, but we saw how it worked. You've seen the pictures, you've heard the news, you've read about it. We are having challenges, actually observing the best practices. This is a particularly worrisome picture that you're seeing, and there are others like it. Will I now bring in IDPs and that kind of a thing where people are also jam-packed? River State government is so concerned that its governor has now, ordered a total shutdown, a total lockdown coming from Thursday the 7th, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
That's pointing to the read that he is taking, and the risk he is deciding that he doesn't want to take.
Of course, because if you don't deal with this virus drastically, you could be on the short end of the stick, and it could be very disastrous. Like we've been saying, there is no cure for this thing. It is still being studied. And in any case, I said advisedly, for those who are waiting for a vaccine, you don't know what number you are on the queue. And so what you can do within the, what you can do that is within your control, don't overlook doing it. You just have to do it. You have to get it done. It has been done in Kaduna. It has been done in so many other states. So when the River State governor said, look, we have to make sure that we lock down this state, the oil workers who keep on coming to the state and bring the infection into the state, I think now they've had enough of it, and he's saying, well, let us make hay while the sun shines. Let us nip this in the bud while we still can. And I think it's advised that people perhaps have between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to stock up and to make sure that as from Thursday, this lockdown comes into effect. The only challenge we have is that normally, even when lockdowns happened in states where Mr. President imposed it, we saw what people will say, we need to go out and eat. The people who are in the informal sector are by far outnumber those who are in the formal sector. It is only normal because we are developing the economy anyway. And so if people will still want to, little carpenters, shop owners, neighborhood markets, one way or the other, there must be those little social ventilators for to keep body and soul together, as it were. If we don't do that, it could be counterproductive. And so yes, but for what it is worth, there's a particular market in Port Harcourt that is called Slaughter Market, along Transamadi. It's been shut completely.
Indeed.
These are the steps that must be taken. Anywhere people congregate in large numbers must be shut.
Indeed. Let's hear it from Prince Uba, our man in Owerri. He's joining us via Skype. Good morning, Prince.
Good morning.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent that we can hear each other. What's it like in Owerri? I'm asking about the attitude of people to the new social norms, face masks, social distancing, not being in large crowds. What's been your experience observing the scene there?
Yes, Owerri is capital of Imo State. It borders with Rivers State, also borders with Anambra and Abia State. And as it stands, the issue of social distancing, the use of face masks, all have been, the governor of Imo State has made it very clear in his last broadcast on May 1st that it is now law that anybody who does not comply with that will be prosecuted. But you know, the way our country is, and the story is not different from what is happening in Lagos, what is happening in Kano, what is happening in other states. The difference is not, is almost the same thing in Owerri. People are not actually sticking to the rules as stipulated by NCDC. The safety protocols are not adhered strictly to. The ban lifted by the restriction ban order lifted by the president of the country. Everybody trooped, virtually everybody trooped into the streets without adhering to the safety protocols. You know, in the banks, when you go to the banks, people are not using their face masks. Some persons are not using their face masks. Normal hand sanitizing and social distancing are not also adhered to. So I think it's not, it's an issue for Nigerians, a very serious issue that Nigerians are really facing. And I'm really scared.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, Prince, what your take is on the thought of commentators that if we don't handle this right, this partial reopening, we might be in danger of reversing the gains that we had made in terms of containing this. And well, I guess you summed it all up when you just said there, I'm just scared.
I'm not, pardon, can you please come again?
Okay, how well do you think people understand the seriousness of this situation and are prepared to behave in accordance with the seriousness it demands?
I still can't hear you clearly, please.
Okay. But let's try Cyril's voice. I'm here with Cyril Abaku. Let's try Cyril's voice.
Yeah, Prince, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah,
Good
so
morning.
we were asking, what do you think is the level of awareness among people, in terms of social compliance with distancing, with maybe use of hand sanitizers and washing the hands and so on? What have you seen on part of people? What is the level of compliance in Owerri?
Yes, the government on each part, government has, used Jingo, billboards at strategic places in Owerri, sensitizing people about it. Well, human beings, they find it very difficult to adhere to common rules. They find it very difficult to adhere to common rules. And that is actually the challenge we are facing in Imo State, especially public places.
Do people not think they are in danger? Prince, ask it for me.
Okay, so please, I'm asking, with this attitude, do people not do they not feel that they're in danger?
Yes, people actually know that there is danger, but not all. Some people still doubt that there is COVID-19, that there is no COVID-19 in Nigeria. Some are also, believe that there is, because in Imo State, we are yet to record mammoth number. We have about 2 cases in Imo State. And because of that, they still feel that there is nothing to bother about. There is nothing to bother about. So they are not sticking, so many of them are not sticking to the common safety rules, which is actually posing a serious danger if care is not taken.
Yeah, so it's a good thing that the numbers are really low in Imo State. But just one last question. I was going to ask, is interstate lockdown movement being enforced vigorously?
Pardon?
is movement against interstate, is lockdown against interstate movement being enforced vigorously in Imo?
Yes, exactly. It is. It is. Even the governor of Imo State made it very clear in his last broadcast that the borders will remain shut, because before now he has shut the borders. There is no interstate movements. There is no interstate. Even the governor himself is still reaffirmed his position on on you know on
That stands.
hello.
You're saying thank you very much, Prince. I wanted to thank you, and I think you ended there with saying that there was no compromise as far as the governor was concerned on a total shutdown of interstate movement. Thank you very much, Prince Uba, TVC news correspondent in Owerri. Well, if we were to be scored the way things are going, I don't think we've gotten to a pass yet.
No, the way we could have done it. You remember that some weeks ago I had said that the lockdown of the economy, or the shutdown, would drive home at least one message: make people realize that there is a problem at hand. Now, I think if it's on that score, we have scored above 80 in terms of letting people know that there's a problem. But perhaps what to do about that problem is what we now need to begin to work to.
In fact, if
to work on, which is this: I was not at any of those banks, either in Lagos or Abuja, to see what was really going on. We saw the videos anyways, but I do not know if, for instance, there were signs on those walls saying, if you came in, it happened in Ibadan.
Yes.
They drew boxes and said, if you want to buy medicine in this pharmacy,
yes,
stand in this.
Yes.
So
business owners are beginning to take
so even business owners must see themselves as stakeholders in the fight against the virus.
But the businesses themselves are being affected. The whole air was rent with news of banks, for instance. Let's talk about banks. Reducing drastically their branches. I think there's the whole controversy going on between Access Bank and the number of branches it now has as a result of the acquisition and merger. So this is a problem, and you can see that as a business model, they simply couldn't survive. They simply couldn't survive without doing something. But what they do is what remains to be seen. Labour is watching. Labour is even understanding that they knew that there was going to have to be some sort of a downsizing of branches, but they seem to be concerned about the staff, the people. Transfer the staff where you will. We understand that we can't keep those number of branches. Now, that's just an example, and we don't even want to go into it here. We don't have the time. But begin to look at other aspects of the business community, and it's going to have implications there as well. So when we say it can't be sustained economically, these are matters, these are issues that begin to make it very, very real. Globally, around the world, we are told that millions have lost their livelihood or are in the process of doing so. And the extent to which government can come across the world, well, we're looking at it.
The report we saw about 2 days ago was that the CBN and the commercial banks had reached an agreement that there will be no downsizing in the sector, and that if any bank felt it needed to do anything of the sort, it
express permission from it.
From CBN. So that has to be put in perspective on the one hand. If you look at countries like Spain, and I think, am I correct, Greece, but Spain in particular, lockdown is eased a little. People are going to the beaches. You can't go to the beach online. You can't do digital beach going. People are going to the beaches. People are going to. But when you juxtapose that with Nigeria, once the lockdown is eased, people are going to banks and so it tells you that our primary problem is our stomach.
Yes. And sorry, just coming in there. Last week, we didn't have the time. At the very tail end of our program on Friday, a lady called in. She said she's a hotelier.
Hotelier, yes, yes.
She owns an hotel.
At Ajawa,
I think. Somewhere, I think it was in, if I remember correct, Ajawa State, Iriakari, that kind of area, Solo area. And she had said that her concern was that nobody was paying them any mind. Nobody was paying them any attention. And so we don't know what to do. When you lift this thing, she has said that she herself had been closed for the past 21 days. So no income at all for her or her staff. Now, her worry was when we do begin to resume some sort of normalcy, what are the guidelines? What am I going to do? How do I know who to turn back? Who's going to help me with that? Or help us as a subsector? These are plenty problems. And then couple that with bars.
So here's what
They're going to be bars.
Yeah, so here's what could be done. I walk into certain shops, certain shops where you have, say, pharmaceuticals, may I? And then you have people who are selling there. As early as the end of February or so, even before the president imposed the lockdown,
yeah,
I was being tested with, they like they put it in your eye and then they check.
The digital thermometer thing.
So, so businesses like that can be given assistance with thermometers. People who are coming could be tested.
Well, yes.
At least.
Yes.
That could be one measure.
Well,
some people could be asymptomatic.
The problem, thank you. The problem is you could be asymptomatic. But let's take Uche Okoro's report. Uche Okoro is our correspondent in Port Harcourt, and then we'll speak with him after the report.
Some parts of Old Port Harcourt Township and other areas have been on total lockdown for the last 2 weeks.
A lot of people survive only in these menial jobs, and you lock down these kind of people. What do you expect from them? There will be a lot of hunger. We know this coronavirus kill a lot. It causes a lot of problems, but hunger kill more than the coronavirus.
But the lockdown and other stringent measures for interstate movement and crowd control hasn't stopped the number of positive cases in Rivers State from rising steadily.
My dear good people of Rivers State,
the state government has now thought it wise to extend the 24-hour curfew to all parts of the metropolis comprising Port Harcourt and Obiakpor local government areas. Vehicular movement and gatherings of more than 2 persons have been banned, while all business activities are to shut down.
All shops, trading or business activities, including currency exchange, in these local government areas must also remain closed until further notice. All landlords are advised to ensure that no shop or trading activity is opened or carried out in or around their premises in the 2 local government areas or risk the confiscation of such property by the government.
Governor Wike said because of the threat posed by oil and gas company workers, the state has reviewed all entry waivers and permits earlier granted to such organizations. Government also promised a 100,000 naira reward for any whistleblower who provides identity and location of anyone who flouts these new restrictions.
All inward bound vehicles and flights into Rivers State from oil and gas companies with workers either for crew change or other designated essential operations must first submit details of their manifest duly to the State Task Force on COVID-19 for proper vetting of their various status before they can be allowed to enter the state.
The latest case of coronavirus in Rivers State is another oil company staff who was flown in from Akwa Ibom by a private helicopter company on the 29th of April. This, the governor says, vindicates his concern about permits and exemptions granted to essential workers. Now going forward, he insists that it will no longer be business as usual. Uche Okoro, TVC News, Port Harcourt.
Okay, and I believe we have Uche on the phone as well. Good morning, Uche.
Hi, good morning, Yuri.
Great. So looking at the total lockdown, this is from the 7th.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. How are people, do people understand it? Because we talk about it's easy to enforce a thing that everybody understands and wants to comply with. Do people understand it enough?
At this time, it is not coming as a surprise to residents of Rivers State. I must tell you, I, for one, and quite a number of persons saw this coming, because initially it was a partial lockdown in Rivers State, which commenced with the closure of land borders, and then shortly after that, a few areas of Port Harcourt were put on 24-hour curfew, and within that space of time, about 4 other parts of Port Harcourt have been placed under total lockdown. I mentioned in my report that a few two areas in Port Harcourt local government area had already been on total lockdown for the past 2 weeks. And then within that period, the state recorded its highest number of new cases between the period when those areas were placed on lockdown and now. So the government has said we're going a step further, we're taking it a notch higher to place the entire state on 24-hour curfew. So residents did not actually saw this coming. It's not coming as a surprise to people. They have embraced it. As of yesterday, when the announcement was made public, there was a lot of frenzy in the city, people trying to rush home or rush to the market or rather rush to shops to stock up and all that. Even as now that I speak to you, quite a number of areas in Port Harcourt that are not under total lockdown are currently experiencing very heavy traffic, heavy slow-moving traffic and congestion. A lot of people are trying to do last-minute carry out every last-minute activity before the 7th. So yes, people understand. People understand the reasons for this action. It is not coming as a surprise. But what the uncertainty now is the fact that many do not know how long this would continue. Many do not know because the government has said it is an indefinite action. So that there is the concern. People understand, they saw this coming, but the concern as at this time is how long can they expect this total lockdown to stop it?
Okay, Uche, as you know, Cyril Abaku is also in studio right now.
Yeah, so Uche, I was going to ask, you did say in your report that in spite of the measures that I'm taking in the past, the numbers have continued to rise steadily. How are people embracing the protocols, social distancing, use of hand sanitizers, hand washing, and so on? Are these being complied with enough in Port Harcourt and other parts of River State?
I'm still, I don't know if you're trying to communicate with me. You might want to have your retake that because I can hear you clearly.
Okay, yeah, to become 1-1. There was a time they didn't hear me, but they heard Cyril. Let me see if you hear me. He was saying, how enlightened are people being about all those things we've been taught to do, social distancing, washing, hand washing, not crowding, not being in a crowd. How enlightened are the people that you have observed being, and to that extent, taking responsibility?
Oh, yeah. There's the belief amongst analysts here in the state, and I believe it's a popularly held opinion, that the solution to this pandemic does not lie in the hands of government. Government can only direct. We also heard at the presidential briefing yesterday, you heard officials there saying that they can preach from now to tomorrow, but the bottom line is the residents have to take control of the measures. Now, in terms of the level of awareness and sensitization in River State, my assessment, I would say it is quite high. Many public places have made provisions for hand washing and sanitizers. So many, if not all, public places that I have been to and seen have hand washing points at their entrances. Also, a very popular, one of the largest malls and shopping malls in Port Harcourt City has made it compulsory that without face masks, there would be no entrance. So at the point of entry, you would have to either have your face mask on or you have to purchase one by the entrance before you make your way in. But the concern is while everyone is having a face mask on their face, even as of today, there is still I still believe that sensitization is very low as regards the proper way to adorn a nose mask.
And Uche, thank you very much. I've got to interrupt you there, but I want to thank you, a lot for reporting on your environment for us there. And we also would we want to squeeze in. I think well, squeezing is not quite the word. We want to take Ibrahim Issa, and he's standing by. He's our correspondent in Kano. Good morning, Ibrahim.
Good morning.
Glad you could join us. What's the situation in Kano? Because news out of Kano has been quite worrying for the reasons that you know. Is it a misplaced kind of understanding of the situation, or does the evidence indeed point to the concern that people seem to have about the number of cases coming out of Kano?
Well, even though the line is a little bit shaky, I would tell you that Kano State today is on lockdown. Yesterday, Kano the lockdown was relaxed by the governor for 6 hours so that the residents can come out to make some purchases. Yesterday, they had the chance to do that. As we speak, there is a COVID-19 briefing is ongoing where I am standing right now. The government will brief the people on the situation on COVID-19. Kano State has in recent times been witnessing rising cases of the coronavirus pandemic, and the government is putting all measures in place to ensure that the spread of the coronavirus is curtailed in the state.
Are we able to separate coronavirus from the, well, for lack of better expression, the strange ailment and the consequent strange deaths being experienced in Kano?
Yeah, earlier on, the Presidential Task Force Committee on COVID-19, especially those that were sent into Kano, had a chat with pressmen, and they said that some of the mysterious deaths recorded in Kano State are related to COVID-19. But that means that not all deaths that Kano has recorded in recent times are related to COVID-19. But the Presidential Task Force say they are going to release the full investigation report of the investigation within 2 to 3 days from now.
Ibrahim, give me your impressions very briefly, please, about social distancing in a place like Kano. Is it much different from what we've experienced more by its lack than its compliance in other places?
Yesterday, when the lockdown was relaxed, of course, there had been situations like that of Lagos and Abuja, especially where banks are situated. Lots of people want to go into the bank and make some transactions. So mostly the banking areas had a beehive of activities because residents want to have access to the banks. But in other places, even though Kano has had restrictions that its market will not be operational, some of the markets in Kano were not open. Only supermarkets were allowed to operate yesterday. And some selected markets, 2 selected markets where perishable goods are sold. So social distancing was practiced.
Okay, I'm going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I'd like to talk with you a bit more. Ibrahim Issa, our man in Kano. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Okay, Cyril, this is the home stretch. I guess the bottom line is that it's a work in progress.
And if you can, please do stay home.
Well, exactly. There are people who are saying that
if you really can, please do stay home.
People just need to look at it, weigh it. It's not an ideal situation, but what will people do? So, as you put it beautifully, if you can, just take yourself out of the mix and stay home. Clear. Okay, then. Well, so that's our program today. I want to thank you, Cyril, for coming up in these times, because these are different times. This is the beginning of what they say, that it's going to be a new normal, and we might as well start getting used to a new normal. So on behalf of Cyril Abaku, this is Yori Folarin saying thank you very much for being with us, and join us tomorrow for a fresh edition.